There's a lot of benefits. One of it is being able to think outside the box, just living your life. With ADHD shows a lot of resilience and perseverance. So if you're able to manage all that, you can go so much further than most people.
Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Welcome to the show, friend. My new best friend, Ron, is with us, and we are going to talk about navigating life around and with ADHD. So maybe we have a coworker that has ADHD, or a son, or a daughter, or an aunt, or an uncle, or a boss. And sometimes we just don't understand what's going on. I think it's really important, because there's so much value in all sorts of thinking. How do we work around this? And so Ron's going to help us understand ADHD and how to work with people with ADHD. And if you have it, how to live your best life. So before we get started, Ron, we're going to get a quick word from our sponsor. And when we come back, help me understand the ADHD mind. We'll be right back.
This is Adam Adams, co-founder of Optimized LLC, where we take the guesswork out of your health. If you're feeling exhausted, struggling with weight, or just not feeling yourself anymore, your hormones might be the problem. And that's why we test, not guess. Analyzing your blood work to pinpoint exactly what's holding you back. At Optimized LLC, we help you rebalance your hormones, boost energy, and reclaim your life. Don't settle for normal. Aim for optimized. Just go to optimize.com to book your free introductory coaching call. It's a free call to help you take the first step toward feeling your best.
All right, Ron, the information about you is in the show notes. So help me understand ADHD and what is it?
Yeah, ADHD, and I'm still trying to figure it out myself. Like it's something that's, I can only give you from my personal experience and what I've experienced from other people. But ADHD can show up in so many different ways. The most basic explanation I could give is there's two main ways that it shows up. And one is like inattentive. So inattentive could be somebody's slower at responding, or they seem to be maybe a little more lazy, or they take a little bit longer to process information. It doesn't mean that they are those things. It's just that's how their brain operates. And on the other end of the spectrum is like the hyperactive. So hyperactive, you often see that maybe more in children, how it's like with running around and they can't sit still, and they're always distracted. They can't pay attention. In adults, it shows up more in like fidgeting or maybe interrupting. Like for me, it always showed up in like I would always interrupt people because like I needed to get what was on my mind out because I might forget it. I had no like filter or like awareness that was actually rude. So, and it could be, like somebody tapping their leg a bunch. I see it a lot when I look around and I'm like, oh, man, maybe that person has ADHD, but it's often shows up in the combined. So it's kind of like a menu of options that you can get. Like you could pick and choose. Like, okay, I want to not pay attention here, and like, I want to like kind of fidget over here. It could show up differently. Um, for me, it's like this whole emotional dysregulation is, I feel, across the board because we're highly sensitive people, and how it shows up is like that part of our brain's been really overdeveloped. And whenever we get a feeling, it is almost to a normal person, it would seem very intense. Like everything's like either turned up or turned way down. There's really very little in between with ADHD when it comes to like reactions and like impulsivity and other things like that. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
I think it does, and with HIPAA rules and everything, you can't really ask anybody if they have it, but,
Yeah.
not like it matters. But how would I deal with if I had a employee that just was slow and wasn't getting back to me in time? If I knew or thought maybe possible that they had ADHD, how would I present or ask them to get this stuff done on time?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, just kind of see where they're at, like emotionally. Try to dig deeper into like, hey, what's going on? I noticed that, like sometimes you get the assignment in or the work project in on time, and sometimes it's late. Like what's really going on in that situation? Like, is there anything I can do to help you? Is there like maybe I could remind you or give you a thing that like a program that can remind you or set you up with somebody else that because oftentimes we need somebody else that helps us along, somebody else because that creates this connection and this accountability. Like I'm not in this alone, if that's you or somebody else, there's different things. And, maybe if, they feel comfortable with saying that they have ADHD, then explore that and be like, well, what types of things do you like, again, do you think I can give you? It's all about like opening the door and being vulnerable, allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Like, you could also say like, look, I sometimes forget and this helps me, type thing.
I saw a book at one point, and I bought it and kind of thumbed through it, but it was called The Unplanner for
Mm,
the ADHD person. And it
yeah.
just had a lot of tips and tricks and things in it of how to keep yourself reminded of things. It was cute.
Yeah.
It was very well written. I just don't have ADHD, so I thought
Uh,
maybe I could help with some of my grandkids. Um, but one of the things to help me understand this, because it was something growing up that um, used to frustrate me, is I have a son that has ADHD, and we'd say, like, take the garbage out. And he's like, I am. Okay, I am. An hour later, it's like, take the garbage out. I am. Like, I never understood the I am. And when I've asked him as an adult, it's like, well, I always intended to take it out. I was I didn't like forget, but he did. He always, yeah, we had to
yeah.
remind constantly. So if you had a coworker like that, how could you get to the bottom of it, of why they're not actually taking the garbage out? When I know they're not taking it out at work, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. And that's a good question. And it's like, you started out with that. Help me to understand this part. And it's coming at it with like curiosity. Like, he's really struggling and, he seems to be like intending to do it, but maybe he's forgetting along that point somewhere. And a lot of people, especially neurodivergents in general, have a difficult time transitioning out of things. Like, so maybe setting up a time frame like to transition. So if you're like, okay, if you want to take the trash out and they're like, I am, like, I get it, you're doing something right now, but like maybe they're watching a TV show and you say, look, after the TV show, after you're done watching that TV show, could you please take the garbage out then? So it gives them this space So like, so they don't feel like they have to jump out of that one, you know, thing that they're doing because it's going to be difficult to tear themselves away from it. Maybe in a workplace environment is like creating, you know, incentive for doing those things like recognition, you know, saying like, oh, okay, if you did these things on time, then, you know, we recognize you in a meeting, or, you know, we'd have a board of like, you get this, and then you get enough of it, you know, enough stars or enough of this, then, you know, we could have like, you get a special prize at the end of the month, you know, so maybe creating an incentive to actually do the work, you know, with recognition, mainly with recognition.
Okay, so maybe from the things that you've said, I've got someone who's just not doing the task. They keep telling me they're doing it, but they haven't done it yet. And so be more curious and give
Yeah.
them a time frame. So,
Mhm.
is there something that I can do to make sure you get it done on time? And which is the curious part, and the time frame, because I need it by before you go to lunch. So those are the two, and then making some kind of reward system. And in the corporate world, it's a little bit difficult. It sometimes will come across as favorites. So you may have to do the reward across the board
Mhm.
for everybody. So you're not playing favorites. But I've never used stars at work. Like, to
Yeah.
me, that was a little kid thing. But I have done awards on paper, like certificates that they could plaster all over their walls.
Yeah.
So, maybe something that you just tell them, thanks for getting this done on time. So they know that they've been recognized. Does that work?
Yeah, or like, you know, recognizing people in front of everybody. Like, I just wanted to recognize Ron because, you know, he's really stepped up this month, or, you know, giving them, you know, something of, you know, and telling them about you. Like I know that I'm asking for this, but, you know, and relating it back to them and saying, hey, look, I know that you enjoy working here and getting the job done. Like, this is going to help in that sense. If you continue to do this, like, because it's going to help me, and that, you know, we're helping each other here. It's not that I'm trying to demand this of you. It's just it's a necessary part of the job. Nobody really enjoys it, but like, imagine what it's going to be like, you know, when we're done working together on this. You know, again,
Yep.
maybe like asking them like, how can I help you with this? You know, is there something I could set up like with like Google calendars, or, you know, an alarm system, something like that, or sticky notes.
Hmm. Yes. And sometimes it's a text, what is it that helps them? And just a reminder. So setting
Yeah.
up that time frame is critical, that they have
Or
that
maybe
transition
dividing it up
period.
into little bite-sized pieces, like, okay, don't give them this whole task, like saying, okay, look, let's get this done by 1 o'clock. You know, like, let's write out 30, you know, like 300 words by 1 o'clock, or 200 words, or come up with an outline or something small, so that it doesn't seem like it's, because we see things as more black and white. It's like, oh my God, this is a mountain to climb. Like, I got to write this report. It's got to be done. Like, it just looks like one thing. Like, if you're able to break it down into little steps, that helps to manage it like along that along that pace. So that it's like, whenever they get one spot done, you know, they might be able to take a break and then work on the next spot. You know, so it's like they feel like they've accomplished something, even though they haven't gotten it completed.
I think a lot of people I know would feel like I was micromanaging them if I did that. But, if I had one person, they needed it,
Yeah.
That would be important to break it down and to give them smaller goals. What do you see as a benefit of having an ADH mind?
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of benefits when it comes to that. And um, one of it is like being able to think outside the box. Just living your life with ADHD shows a lot of resilience and perseverance. So like if you're able to tap into like and manage all that, like you can go so much further than most people because like if you're reverse that from standing, coming from behind and trying to catch up to actually being there, like you get to this point where you can do so much more in so much little less time if you know how to manage it right. And then on top of everything, it's you have a creative mind. So it's like we think more out of that creative side. So when it comes to problem solving and creative solutions, so creativity is not just like an artistic thing or an entertainment thing. It's so much more than that. And I believe businesses really can benefit from, tapping into an individual's creativity.
Okay, so creativity. One of the things that in the two conversations is I need to make sure I set little goals with rewards and reminders. And then the next one was they get so much more done.
Yeah.
So, can you help me balance that in my brain of how is it getting so much more done when I feel like I'm having to babysit and make sure you keep moving?
Well, it's not exactly babysitting, and it's that, and it's more about being fair, like to the individual. It's like not everybody's brain works the same way, so it's being able to understand that, and like with me, like I can be really excited about something one day, and then the next day I'm like depressed or my chemicals are off imbalanced. So it's like I function higher when I'm on that dopamine. And when that's not producing in my brain, I need an artificial stimulant when it comes to, like an outside source, like breaking it down, like helping them, and maybe teaching them how to break their own schedule down, being like, hey, look, this is, I'll help you figure this out. But like next time, maybe you can start breaking this down or come to me and ask me until you get better with that. So it's like, it's teaching them and teaching yourself like how to operate with like somebody that thinks a little bit differently. Their brain shows up like they don't want, we feel bad when we're not able to do what other people do, within that system. But like when we understand like what our limitations are and how to work around them and like build these systems that work for us, we can start, managing our own systems, if that makes sense.
I had a coworker that um, was kind of difficult to work with in a sense of uh, I'm not even I'm his focus was always sporadic, not always, staying on task. And I know he ended up getting fired um,
Yeah.
because he just couldn't stay working, getting things done. And I found out that he actually went on to ADHD medication and was um, thriving at his new job.
Mhm.
He says, because um, the boss, kept reminding him, hey, I think you've got more problems than I think it's fixable. Go get help. And he's like,
Mhm.
but, so he finally went, I can't keep losing jobs, because he had already lost a few. And so he's like, okay, I'll go get help. And I understand he's doing wonderful with just that change. What does that chemical or what does that drug do for you? Or I know a lot that maintain it without drugs. So what is that balance? What do you do?
So yeah, and honestly, I haven't had to take any medication. I've actually tried, was prescribed antidepressant medication, which it didn't work out. I ended up stopping using that because I felt more depressed. But honestly, I talked to my therapist about it, and when you do antidepressant medication, you need to be supervised under that because it can actually cause, lead to suicide in a lot of cases if it's unsupervised because of the thought, because it takes 2 weeks to a month for it to start kicking in and taking effect. I wasn't given that information when I was taking it, so I felt like it needs to be managed better. With other, when I've talked to other people with medication, I've heard that it quiets the voices. It helps them to really slow down and focus. And with those type of individuals, yeah, I would say that that's what they need. Um, at the end of the day, it's more about getting the help that you need. And my approach more is about, yeah, if everything else fails, get the medication. If that's what you need it's like a life preserver. But you don't continue, you learn how to swim after that. So if you're not learning how to swim, that life preserver is not going to teach you how to do that. You
Mm.
gotta you gotta actually work through that. I just believe that there's so small of a number of people that actually need medication every single day for the rest of their life. Now, however long that it takes to get to a more holistic approach depends on the individual and the amount of work they're willing to put in on themselves. Which you can't make somebody want to improve. That has to come from within. So with that medication really can, and it's good that individual was able to see he needed help, and he was able to listen and see the patterns that were going on in his life, because it usually is like a simple fix when it comes to, like, oh, I just need to be able to, for me it was like I needed to slow down. I needed techniques and tools to do that, and some of it was, being okay with going at a slower pace. And when I wasn't working because there wasn't work to do, I was given this um, task of journaling, journaling my thoughts. If I wanted to say something, and I'd write it down or draw. So it's comes out, it gets out, but I'm not speaking it out. It's not sitting in there like running around and like this energy that needs to escape.
I love that because I think a lot of us use journaling that same way is I
Yeah.
just got to get this out of my head. So I quit letting it come back around and back around. It's like those things like the task list, same thing. It's like I keep worrying I'm going to not get everything done. So I'm going to write it all down and then I don't have to worry. I don't have to
Yeah.
keep playing it in my mind over and over again. So those things can help us all, and as, e- executives, we're going to have people with ADHD on our teams and we may even be the one with ADHD.
Yeah.
It's how do it's we're all different, and it's just a small group of people that we can lump into a ADHD, but they're all different too. And so
Mhm.
it's like coming up with certain tricks. I shouldn't say certain that not tricks, because that sounds like we're being rude, but certain ways of approaching different individuals. And that makes life. I don't want everybody to be like me because that would be boring and we'd only
Yeah.
have one thing in life and we wouldn't have all this diversity that we have. But at the same time, I think everybody thinks like I do. It's like,
Yeah.
well, everybody's got to think like this. It's just normal. But that's my normal. And it's like learning to love and appreciate other people's normals
Yeah.
is the whole idea behind this without starting to wonder, I'm not normal anymore. So
Yeah.
how do you I mean, for you, you had to learn to slow down. So let's go with, this person just can't hold still and they can't focus because they're always on the move. They have to get up every 5 minutes and walk around. How do I, as a supervisor, deal with allowing that and understanding that's how he gets his work done or she?
Yeah. And it just goes back to that, like, okay, everyone thinks different. Everyone shows up different and they're not doing that to be weird. They're not doing that to just defy the rules. They're doing that because they really can't help it. Like that's how, and really seeing people as like, kind of like what they're doing good. So looking for their strengths, as a supervisor being like, okay, instead of like coming from that deficit mindset, which the systems just raised us that way, just coming at it and being like, hey, maybe like when he does work, he's really good or he really cares about his coworkers and he's really like talks to them and really, and tries to figure out how their day is when he's good, and trying to look at those, maybe if you're saying he fidgets a lot, there's things that you can get stress balls. Maybe he or she needs, um, you know, um, that noise canceling headphones, certain different things like that, or maybe giving them like extra breaks because they're more productive with those breaks and they're able to movement. A lot of people with ADHD and neurotypicals in general, I mean neurodivergence. I feel like people in general, our brain's designed to incorporate movement when we learn. So when we're moving, you're more likely to come up with better solutions. You're more likely to get work done in a more productive way. And I've actually done a podcast on how, the science behind breaks, why breaks actually increase productivity. So, like, I know a lot of supervisors hear that word, oh, breaks, like that's and they cringe, but it actually lines up with the way the brain operates. And you're less likely to make mistakes. You're less likely to get injured. You're more productive. There's a whole lot of benefits when you have like spaced out breaks instead of like one large break, um, throughout the day. And I feel like that's even more so because of the amount of work that we're able to get done within those breaks. Like it's it creates this, we're able to do that and have breaks. And it may look like, oh, he's just being more lazy, but that's just because you're looking at it from that negative spot. Look at what they are doing and try to encourage that instead.
I remember one time that someone appeared to just really not do their work. I mean, they were just always talking, always up and about, and always on the phone. And I remember calling their boss and going, this guy never works. And I think you should pay more attention. Well, I don't know why I needed to fix the world, but I probably called back maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour later, and I said, ignore what I said. If you are having productivity problems with them, let me know. I can tell you. If they're getting their work done, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's like I was looking at it as we're sitting at our desk busy and he's always up and around. And I realized I know people that need to be up and around to get their job done,
Yeah.
just to stay focused. They need to have those breaks. And so I just like, hey, unless you're having a productivity issue, then I take it back.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's like sometimes you get frustrated and you try to fix the world and you figure out, oh, it's me that needs to change.
Yeah, definitely. To what you were talking about is like there's this whole aspect that most of us don't see, and that's the social intelligence part and the teamwork part of our job. And he's providing a lot of that social interaction and that joy to come into work. I'm always preaching this. It's like a happy employee, a well balanced and employee is going to be a more productive employee because they want to come in, and that creates this whole environment of like vulnerability. So you see these people as the front. You're going to battle with them. They've got your back. Like, we can talk about our issues and work through them together when you open up the door to these, and what he's doing is, I spend a lot of more of my time at my job actually having conversations with people because they, like yesterday, there was this guy, and this girl had this problem with, he didn't do the job in the right way, and I was like, and she was thinking he just didn't want to do it. He didn't care. And I was like, well, you don't know that. Like, kind of coached her through having that conversation with him, and saying, look, I don't know if you knew this, but you actually are supposed to do it this way. It's the right way to do it. And she was kind of nervous and she didn't really want, and I was like, I can have that conversation with him, but I think it would be better coming from you. And like, because you actually know. And it's like, so we ended up in a conversation with him, and I like kind of nudged her, and she had started that conversation. We found out that he didn't know, like, he just didn't know that that was how we do it, and we went through the process, and he really appreciated that, because I saw him as a person that was, I knew him on a deeper level than most people because I see him as he's a good person. He knows what he's doing, and he really, really did appreciate, her having, and I was proud of her for stepping up because I knew that took a lot of courage for her.
So I know that one of the things that I strive for, and this is a question or clarification from your story, is I don't care how it gets done, but it needs to be done to this standard. And
Yeah.
I started doing that when I had a kid that had ADHD. It's like, I don't care how you get it done. This is
Hmm.
how you have to get it done. I mean, what it needs to look like when you're done. And that way took the frustration off me if there was breaks in the middle or
Hmm.
odd things that would come up in the process. It was as long as it's done, when it's all
Yeah.
said and done, I'm okay with it. And so it really takes some time because I always feel like my way is the best way. To let somebody else have their own path
Yeah.
has been a real uh, learning process for me.
Yeah, definitely. And I came from the same place. It was like I'd want to control things, and I started training people, and they wouldn't do it the way that I asked them, and that would really frustrate me. But I started to let go of that and be like, well, they have their own. As long as they get it done, I want them to be in their groove, like, because when you have this stress of having to do it a way that's not working for you, like that, it makes your job so much harder. When you get this freedom to be creative in the process, then maybe you might come up with a better way that other people can use So it creates I've often learned from people that I've trained because like I'm open to like, oh wow, they did it this way. Maybe I could try that. I didn't think of that. So it creates this whole like organic process of, you know, um, always refining the system because you're adding a new set of, a new set of eyes to look at it.
So if we are still struggling, we've started to be curious, we've started to help them break things down, we've started, working through changing the way we approach this person. If it's still frustrating, if it's still to the point where things aren't getting done to the right standard, what do we do? I mean, because I don't want to punish someone for being who they are, but maybe the job's not the right thing for them.
Yeah, and that's true. Like if you tried everything on your part and you've been patient and there continues to be, sometimes there are people that just it's not the right fit or it's not the right time for that. They're not in a position to want to learn. But you've got to give them the opportunity, the benefit of the doubt that, maybe they're, and maybe give them ultimatum, at that point. Just like, look, I've tried everything. I'm trying to work with you. I understand what's going on and and I've helped. I need a little bit from you if we're gonna continue to move on. Cause honestly, like I'm just it's just frustrating for me, and I'm not trying to blame you or this is just how I feel and I wanna be open with that. Maybe at that point they might hear you. And if they don't, not everything's gonna work out. It's like unfortunate, but sometimes, a lot of times in my own experience, like I've had to lose jobs, I've had to become homeless, like I've had to have things happen or almost get fired for things to change for me, to for me to finally start listening. So I get it, but like it's not losing hope in that individual. It's just, maybe this is their path that they need to learn. Some of us need those hard lessons, to really, and those are the most valuable ones. And we got to be okay with, allowing them to go through that, not protecting them from something that they actually need.
Yeah. And it's like, how do we make sure everybody's just living their best life? And that's, my
Yeah.
goal is that you live your best life, I live my best life, and we can interact and live together. And sometimes that is a lot easier to say than do.
Yeah. It's
Is
just, yeah, that one thing. It's just love them from a distance. You can love everybody as human beings with respect, but sometimes some people are just aren't in a place to give you back what you're giving, and you don't need those people as close around you. So you just keep your distance and be respectful, and
okay.
hope for the best.
So if we were to sum up everything, it's like chill. It's okay.
Yeah, people, are people, and then we make mistakes. And like I feel like the most amazing stories are the ones that are those guys that were the scum of the earth at one point and or girls and they turned their life around and became almost saints. That transformation right there is so powerful. And if they weren't that person, they couldn't help the people that are just like them. So nobody likes to hear, nobody wants to hear the story of the guy that had all the riches and then got richer. They want to hear about the guy that struggled and made it through and persevered and became better for it.
I
You
love
know?
that saying. That one's great. I know I've heard it before, but it's not one that goes through my mind like, you don't get excited when the richer gets richer. The rich get
Yeah, you're
richer.
like
You want
the
to hear the
poor.
story of someone rising above, someone who's struggled. Because I think it makes us all know that because we look at our lives, nobody sees all our struggles. Everybody struggles. Even that rich person who's getting richer is
Oh
struggling.
yeah.
And it's like to know that it's just okay. You know, it's
Kings and princes struggle. Like no one's safe from trauma in life. It's just money doesn't solve issues.
it can help.
I mean, it does have value. I'm not saying run out and be, without money, but like when it comes to valuables, it's not on there's more things that have value.
Money is worthless without its power to purchase other things.
Yeah.
Unless,
Yeah.
of course, you want to warm up your fire. Money itself is nothing. It's the purchasing power. What I can do with it is what is important, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's like, I have too many places. It's like when you get a bonus check, maybe let's pretend like it's a whole $3,000 or something. How
Yeah.
many times can I spend that $3,000? Like in my brain, it can go a million places, but it really only can go one or two.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's same with everything in life. We can do it so many different ways, but we got to kind of like pinpoint what is the most important because that's all the
Mhm.
energy I have.
Yeah, how can I invest this wisely? It's really money's just it buys things like it should buy experiences. It should buy learning and value and add to your life in a great way. So it does have its place and it is necessary, but it's more of a transactional thing than the actual like money doesn't do a lot just sitting there in the bank,
Because it
unless
might make you feel good.
it's there for a rainy day, so
That's what retirement is rainy days. That's what all that money's for.
those rainy days.
Ron, this has been a lot of fun and I think very insightful, looking at staying curious and staying open, allowing for more breaks, helping them break things down into smaller groups. And, really just being open and honest. If things aren't going well, communicate and make sure that you're on the same page. There's transparency in your life. And so those are some of the points that you've brought up. And if I've gotten them all, if I missed one, let me know. But I would love to have you share with our friend a little bit about yourself, what you do, what makes you sing, or not literally.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and you definitely threw some curveballs at me, and I just want to put it out there, like I'm still learning these processes, so um, don't think these are like the number one option to go to. So, what are some things that really help me in my life right now? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say, just mindfulness and those character strengths, like just being open to like I actually found this
Is it a band?
says yeah, it's a band and I was like it's on my walk in the morning. So it says I am loved, I am thankful and I am kind. And I was like, man, that really like it's like branding yourself with these strengths. Like I am these things. And I saw that thing like probably a week ago and I was like, I wanted to leave it there just in case the person that dropped it would get it. But I was like, okay, it's been a week. There's it's for me now. And, honestly, it's a lot of what I represent, and I take that mindful walk every morning and it helps me sometimes a lot, sometimes a little, but it gives me that little bit of a break throughout the day to just be okay. Because where I want to get to is like being okay with what I got right now, because I have everything that I need, and that's like the tenets of um, a lot of Buddhist like practice, but especially with mindfulness is if I truly believe that and I truly am trying to show that Like, I will be grateful. I won't be chasing things as often. I'll be okay with the journey, because the journey, if you can't enjoy the journey, you'll never enjoy the destination. Like, those are the things that bring me happiness, is those breaks, and being able to talk to people like you about these deeper issues, and being challenged to grow and learn, because you definitely taught me a lot today.
Oh, great. So, I know you have a book, I know you have a podcast, and you're a coach. So,
Yeah.
who do you coach? What is your coaching audience? Are you mostly ADHD? Are you adults, children, women?
Yeah, I coach. I'm a strengths coach. So I coach men over 40 to move out of isolation that deal with ADHD, depression or addiction, and I help them to build confidence. Finally feel seen and heard, and create a real deeper connections in their life through those practices of being more pro-social. Because if you can't see, ask for what you want or need, you can't truly get what you want in life.
Okay. I love it. So, what's that one thing that we can do today to better understand ADHD and help us be more open to having people in our lives that are different than us?
Yeah, I would just say, just be curious. Like, it always goes back. That is one of my go-to superpowers, or strength, character strengths that, really I lean into a lot, is like being curious of why people do what they do, or even better, looking at people, everybody, as an opportunity to learn something new, because everybody has something that you don't know, that makes them special. And like, it gives you a free access card to learning something new that you didn't know. And maybe it might be a new hobby or maybe it might be a life hack that you're like, wow, I can just implement this. Or it just might be a perspective shift that really helps your day. If that curiosity is so powerful,
I
especially
love,
the childlike curiosity that we naturally have.
yes, curiosity is fun. And I know people that are super curious and others like, no, it says do not enter. My mama told me never to go in there.
Yeah, well, they're being prudent too. So
Thank you so much for joining us today, Ron. It's been my pleasure. I know that, your insights have been very helpful for all of us. So,
thank you.
yeah, friend, Ron and I are not medical or mental licensed professionals. We're here for entertainment, not medical advice. Please follow your doctor's and your therapist's advice. Hey, wait, before you go, Ron has a special offer for you. Ron, what are you offering?
Yeah. If you guys, I've also put together a free self-discovery journal. It's an ebook you can grab at youradhdguy.com. It's a simple way to reflect, reset, get to know yourself better.
All right. Thanks, Ron. And that information is in the show notes also. So
Yes.
thank you for joining and stay tuned for the next episode.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss a next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.